Hi. I was thinking about failure, the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, and how it's related to success. And I just thought I would share. I was speaking to a young friend of mine, and he was telling me a story of how he's always been so risk averse and he's afraid of failure. And he told me this story of um, how he was in love with this young lady. And so he gathered up the courage and approached her and told her how much he liked her and how he wanted to have a relationship. And she said no. She said she was just coming out of a broken relationship and she didn't really want to take that into a relationship right now. And she was still healing. So he said the way he felt really, really terrible. He went back to his room and he just felt like the ground should have opened up and swallowed him, and he felt regret why he opened his heart to her. And I laughed because, um, this is not something I think it's not a unique situation. I know that many of us are afraid of rejection, many of us are afraid of failure, not only in this romantic kind of situation that this guy was telling me about, but also in many things we attempt, business and so on. So, if you think about it, really, there is very little that in your life, very little of substance that you have just done the first time and succeeded. Many times you do something once, you fail, and then you maybe succeed the second time. Just yesterday, I was trying to bake cookies on a sigiri, and the first batch I baked were all burnt black, charcoal black. But the second batch I baked came out fine, and yeah, I guess that's how most of life is. To me, that's my observation. If you think about it, when, for example, most of us now can read and write really fluently, we write complicated things, essays, books, even, and yet remember the time when you were maybe in nursery school or primary school, learning to form letters A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. If you look at children doing that and how they find such difficulty, it takes years to learn this. And yet, right now, the way we are, we take it for granted. It's like this is something so simple. So, if you look at that, it gives you a certain perspective that we should not be afraid of failure, we should not be afraid of rejection, because most times the things we do, we may have to try once, twice, thrice, and we may have to try for years before we begin to get into a kind of place where we just get into almost an unconscious doing and succeeding. So in the story of my friend, the, where the girl rejected him, I have seen men in this kind of situation who, when they are, let's say, turned down in that way, they will go and be like, the ground should swallow me up, and why did I do that? But I've also seen men who, you know, they keep their heart open and they'll tell the lady, well, I know you're in this kind of situation, but let's be friends. Maybe let's have a coffee sometimes. Let's meet sometimes for a movie or something. Not maybe a date. Let's just be friends. And I've seen in some of those situations where, yeah, this guy has won. Finally, he has won the heart of this person he fell in love with. So I know in that sense also, sticking around sometimes leads to success. And even if it doesn't lead to success, even if you finally fail, if you actually really cared about something, isn't it actually worth trying it once, twice, thrice? I think it is. If you actually really care about something, it's worth trying again and again and maybe again. It's worth trying maybe for years. if it's important. Otherwise, it's probably something then maybe that wasn't even worth trying in the first place. I think one way of overcoming this, how can we overcome this? Of course, when you're aware that this is how you are, then that is, awareness is always the first step in, let's say, a habit or an attitude losing control over you. Sometimes it also becomes important. Sometimes it's also good to know why you are this way. I know that for most of us, it's because we were shamed as children. You know, in the society we live in, when you don't do something perfectly, many times your peers will laugh at you. Or maybe when you do something even just slightly differently, your peers will laugh at you. Sometimes they'll do it in a friendly way, but sometimes they will maybe do it in a malicious way. And some of us, if you are sensitive, maybe you take that and it hurts you deep down. And most of us, as human beings, we want to belong, we want to be loved, we want to be validated. So if what you're doing doesn't meet with approval of somebody else, you're made to feel a certain shame, and you're made to feel that if you do things a certain way, you won't be allowed to belong, you won't be a valued part of the group. Then many times you just decide to not try again. You decide to behave in such a way that maybe people will accept, that maybe will not put you in danger of being laughed at. And that's really what stops us from trying again, doing again, to the point where we can learn a skill, to the point where we can maybe take this person we want to connect with out of their shell and go into a relationship. Something popped into my head from the Bible. I think it's in 2 Timothy chapter 1, either verse 6 or 7, if I'm not mistaken. It says, "For we have not been given a spirit of timidity and fear. We have been given a spirit of power and love and of soundness of mind." So really, to me, it's like the divine within us. The divine within us is fearless. The divine within us wants us to connect to that fearlessness when we are trying to pursue something that we want in this life. And many people will think that if God wants this for me, then it should be sort of automatic. Many times it isn't. Because this is a part of us that wants us to be empowered to do things ourselves, to do things more and more independently. We have been given everything. We have been given not timidity, not fear, but we have been given power and love and soundness of mind. So I hope you go and tap into this part of you as we are getting out of this COVID pandemic time and beginning to either resume or start new things. I know I needed to be reminded of this story of fear of failure and fear of rejection. I think it's sort of primed me a little bit to continue with what I abandoned during COVID times, to pick it up and to move on fearlessly. Now, bye. Have a nice week. I wish you all the best.